All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're looking at a top 25 matchup between Utah and Oregon. The Ducks will come to Salt Lake City. They're a 3-point dog. The over-under is at 59. Oregon historically has dominated the series 23-10 all time. 5 of the last 7 they have won. We'll likely see these two rematch for the Pac-12 title game regardless of the outcome. Utah, if they lose, they would have the same amount of, I think, 2 conference losses with Arizona State. They beat the Sun Devils, so they would currently own that tiebreaker. A lot of ball left to be played, but most likely we'll see these two square up once more in Vegas here in a couple of weeks. So let's get into it. We got the Oregon offense, and Anthony Brown. He's a big part of what they do. I think a lot of people have unfairly given him some criticism, mainly because of the passing attack. They don't seem to really have a high ceiling. And you kind of knew coming into the year it'd be kind of make or break with Brown at quarterback. He hasn't been bad by any means, though. They do seem to have a little bit of inconsistent problem, but they do seem to have an consistency problem, but they are incredibly deep at receiver. All kinds of talent. Johnny Johnson, Micah Pittman, Chris Hudson, Devon Williams, Jalen Redd, you name it. These guys are deep at receiver. That is not a problem for them one bit. This offense, it flows through the running game they have. You know, losing C.J. Verdell really hurt, but Travis Dye, you figured he was going to have no problem taking over that number 1 role, and he's done it with ease. Nearly 1,000. I think he's actually got over 1,000 total yards this year. He's done a lot as a pass catcher for them. Byron Cardwell, he got a lot of touches. Or it wasn't a lot of touches, but he had some good production against Washington State. They have a handful of guys on the roster that were vying for that number 2 running back role when Verdell went down. He's really emerged in that role. Seven McGee gets involved a bit. Trey Benson, you might see a touch or 2 from him. Brown, though, I was talking to Ty Thompson a couple of weeks ago, and he says Brown, he's incredible. He's a lot faster than people give him credit for. Very good runner. He's deceptive. This trio of runners, they like to get vertically. They like to get upfield. I like what they do running the ball. The offensive line has been great, especially in pass protection. So the passing attack, it struggles at times, but it's still one of the better ones in the conference, I'd say. They do a very good job of getting into their playmakers. Third down has really not been an issue for them for the most part of the year. They struggled a lot against Washington and Seattle. That was the top-ranked pass defense in college football at the time. It probably still is, too. So no real shock there because, their ceiling, 250, 300 yards a game, that's about their ceiling. They're not going to overwhelm you through the air. But they have nice balance. That should not be overlooked. 12-4 TD to INT ratio for Brown. 203 passing yards a game. He does a lot for them, especially running the ball. So this is a very good offensive line. I really like what they have on the interior. Forsyth, he's played very well. TJ Bass, these guys are big and strong. We'll get to Utah's in a minute. They're the same. They have great characteristics as well. I think George Moore at left tackle's had a nice season. Overall, this Oregon offense, I really like them. People like to discredit them a bit. Yeah, they had that one game against Stanford where they struggled to get things going. Other than that, though, they've done it on the ground or through the air. Seen against Washington State that ran for 300-plus yards. So this is a very good Duck offense. At the Utes offense, Cam Rising's been efficient, mildly effective. Coming into the year as a 3-way quarterback battle between Cam, Charlie Brewer, Jackson. He came over from Texas. Cam came out on top. Brewer, he dipped. Was it week 3? It was still September, I think, and he transferred kind of like Jake Bentley did last year. I don't know what's going on with some of these college kids, but Rising took over the job. He's been in the system the longest. I like what he brings to the table. He's very positive with his legs. This offense utilizes them when they need to. They stack bunch formations, like to turn around and hand it off to the running backs on draw plays, those zone option plays. That's a very big part of their offense. They're very deep at running back. Micah Bernard, Tavion Thomas, TJ Pledger, the Oklahoma transfer. You don't really know which one of them is going to get the call on any given night. They're incredibly deep. They run for 215 yards per game. They've been very consistent week-to-week basis, other than against San Diego State where they were just completely stonewalled. Other than that, they've been very consistent. Against Arizona last week, it was a little tough for them. That was probably their second worst performance of the year, honestly, running the ball. I like what they have, though, with the 3 runners. Rising. Again, he's very capable. The biggest part of this offense, though, that needs to be discussed is their passing attack. They don't have a downfield passing attack whatsoever. 122nd in college football in 30-plus passing plays. They just don't get it downfield. Their top pass catchers have been their tight ends, Brant Cooley, Dalton Kennard. These are big guys, nice hands. They'll do a lot inside, too, as blockers. Britton Covey, one of the veterans. Him and Cooley, both veterans on this team in terms of pass catchers. He's tied with Brant for the most receptions on the team. He's more of a possession guy, though. 8 yards per catch. They don't really have a lot of heavy hitters. You remember Brian Thompson, he transferred out. So they don't have big downfield threats. And they've not been good throwing the ball downfield at all this year. But they have nice balance. That shouldn't be overlooked at all. Rising does not turn the ball over very often. Only a couple picks on the year, two, that is. I like what they have, though. They have nice balance. The tight ends, heavy part of the offense. They're not as good as Iowa State in using tight ends, but they have two very capable ones. I like what these guys provide for them. The offensive line, though, they've been probably just as good or even better than Oregon's, especially in pass protection. I just told you what they do running the ball. They're pretty good at doing that. Nick Ford up front, he really leads the charge. Everyone's above 300 pounds. These guys are big. They're nasty. Nothing new. Kyle Whittingham always has very tough players in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Overall, two very good offenses that excel at running the football behind tough, nasty offensive lines. So this should be a fun matchup offensively. Looking at the Oregon defense, Kayvon Thibodeau, he's been on a complete train wreck this year. 10 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. He's been a complete force. This guy's just so good. Remember the UCLA game? He had 4.5 of those tackles for loss. I couldn't block him. I like what they have outside of him, though, too. Brady Swinson had some success early in the season as a pass rusher. Had some injuries. He's been kind of struggling since. He had a sack last week. He's starting to get back into the rotation a good bit. Brandon Dorless, 284 pounds. This is a guy who can line up inside or outside. I like what he gives them coming in anywhere on the defensive line, really. Hudson as well. These guys are they're a collectively good unit, I'd say. They don't have, other than KT, standout production by any means, but they have players who give them a lot, especially in the front seven, because Noah Sewell, 79 tackles, a linebacker. His ability to defend tight ends is really going to give benefits to this Oregon defense, because that's one of the things they're going to have to worry about covering up. They got a pretty good matchup in the secondary, since this is not a heavy-hitting passing attack. But Sewell's ability to defend, I think, is going to be a plus. Back to the defensive line, though, 160-plus yards. They've only allowed over that once this year on the ground. They're very good at stopping the run. Very tough in that front seven. The Ducks actually lead the Pac-12 in run defense. Again, back to the secondary, though, soft zones really hurt them. UCLA, OSU, for examples. They keep everything in front of them, though. They allow yards, but they don't give a big plays. I guess a bend but don't break type of mentality. They don't give big plays. Verone McKinley can do a lot for them in the box or in the back end. He's got 5 picks on the year. The secondary, 14 INTs. That's 5th nationally. They have a lot of playmakers. Michael Wright, Jamal Hill. I like this secondary. I think they have a big-time matchup here. And with their ability to stop the run, they could really overwhelm the Utah offense in this game. Very nice matchup, though, in the trenches. Utah will not back down whatsoever. So this is a game I cannot wait to watch. And all the matchups are very intriguing. So we'll move to the Utah defense. The Utes, they have not been as good as I expect them to be this year. They're still better than last year, 23.8 points per game. But I did expect big years from Mike Tafua, Devin Lloyd at linebacker. These guys have been elite for this defense. 7 sacks each. Lloyd, he leads the team in every single category. 3 interceptions, 19 tackles for loss, and 7.5 sacks. 80-plus tackles. I mean, it's ridiculous. He did this last year. He's doing it again. This is one of the nation's top linebackers. He can stop the run, come off the edge, and make a play. This guy is truly one of the nation's best at his position. Doesn't get talked about enough. You'll see on Saturday why he is incredibly good, why I'm giving him this much praise, as I have all year long and all offseason long. I think he's a phenomenal player. Van Fillinger, he stepped up, 260 pounds, though. Not a very big guy. He's a big reason why Utah leads the Pac-12 in sacks by 10. Oregon, they're second with 10 less. It's typical Utah, though. Big, nasty rotation, led by Tafua off the edge. Nothing new. If you've ever watched Utah football, these guys are very good, athletic, aggressive in the front seven. I like this defensive line. They've been inconsistent against the run, though, I think. Despite all the praise I'm giving this front seven, the bigger and better overall offensive lines they've played this year, Oregon State, BYU, San Diego State, they have struggled to defend the run, and they've also not been able to find their pass rush. Despite how good they've been, they only had 3 sacks in those 3 games. They also couldn't stop the run. So, and I think, they lost all 3 of those games, too. So, I think that's a very crucial matchup to look for in this game, because they're playing another phenomenal running game and great offensive line. So, despite how good the defense has been, they've disappeared against the better teams in the trenches. So we'll see how that does. Nephi Sewell, his brother, of course, on the other side. Their other brother as well, Penny Swell in the NFL. These guys, two very good linebackers. Neffy has had a great season himself alongside Devin Lloyd. He's just as good, I think. The secondary for Utah, kind of like Oregon. They don't get beat a lot, but their intermediate zone has kind of been an issue. They're nowhere near as good at making plays as Oregon is. The only 2 interceptions by defensive backs this year. They're ranked towards the bottom of the conference in completion rate. I think Clark Phillips is their best cover guy. Brendan McKinley, he's been tough at safety. He's one of their top tacklers. It's a little concerning considering how good the pass rush has been. If they get checked up, how will the secondary respond if the pass rush is not helping them out? They didn't play bad in the games they lost. Those teams aren't really specialized in throwing the football either. I think Oregon's going to possess a nice vertical threat. They got some downfield burners. They haven't seen a receiving group like this all year long. So despite how good this Utah defense is, it seems like they have a very bad matchup here in the trenches considering the theme of the year. We'll see what happens. Being at home is certainly going to be plus. But both of these defenses and offenses, I think these guys are really good. This is as close as it gets, I think, in the Pac-12. Looking at team comparisons, I'm going to give Oregon the edge at quarterback Anthony Brown. He's not been bad as a passer. He's not been great, of course, but he gives them something every single week with his legs, with his arm. It doesn't matter. He doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He's very fast. I love watching this guy run the ball. Running back, if C.J. Verdell is playing, the Oregon Ducks would probably have the edge. He's not out for the year. The Utes, they have a nice trio of Bernard, Thomas, Pledger. They got the edge at running back. Oregon, they have young talent, nice depth themselves, but I think Utah has those 3 guys have 400-plus yards each rushing this year, so they get the edge at running back. At wide receiver, Oregon, it's not even a contest. They're incredibly deep. Johnson, Pittman, Devon Williams, very talented guys. The top receivers for the Utes are the tight ends, and again, they don't have any heavy hitters. At least I haven't seen it this year. Oregon by far has the edge of receiver. Offensive line, I'm going to give the Ducks a little bit of an edge. I think they're a little bit better on the interior with Forsyth and Bass. Pretty even in that category. The defensive line is pretty even. Reason I say that, Kevin Thibodeau is the nation's best defensive player. The Utes, though, their pass rush is much better. Like I said earlier, 10 more sacks. So we'll give them the even mark here because it'd just be disrespectful to not do that. So we'll go ahead and give it even there. Linebacker, I'm going to give Utah the slight edge because there's Sewell Nephi. He's been very good alongside Devin Lloyd outside of Noah on Oregon. It's kind of been a committee. They've been really trying to find their footing ever since Justin Flo went down. They're not bad at the position either. Keith Brown, he's a high-end 4-star recruit. He might give them some good plays in this game. Utah, I think they have the edge at linebacker. Secondary, Oregon, just talked about the playmaking differential. It's pretty big. Oregon, a lot better playmaking from their secondary than the Utes. They haven't been bad, though. I think Clark Phillips, he's probably one of the best in the conference at his position. So is Verone McKinley McIlwright, though. So Oregon, they're going to get the edge of the secondary. Looking at keys to the game for Oregon, consistent pass rush. If they can show up and do that and be disruptors off the edge, I think they're going to cause Utah passing attack to completely crumble because they're not great downfield to begin with. If you can cause some disruption, especially with KT, it's going to be a long afternoon, or long night, that is, for the Utes. Utah, I think, their defensive line, they need to play to their potential. I just talked about it when I discussed their defense, how despite how good they've been this year, they've disappeared completely in those 3 losses. They haven't been able to stop the run very well. And then the pass rush was absentee as well, so their defensive line has to play up to their potential. Mike Tafua especially. Prediction for this game, I'm going to take Oregon 28-23. The Utes are going to be a trendy pick and they're favorites. And for good reason. This is a really good football team. Again, though, the theme of the year has been struggle against these bigger and better offensive lines. This is a pretty complex running game they're facing as well. So I think their passing game will be held in check. The Utes, that is, I think their passing game will be held in check. It's going to be a close game because playing in Salt Lake City is incredibly tough. I haven't checked the weather report, but I'm sure it's going to be hectic out there. So I think it'll be a close game. I think Oregon could certainly beat them by double figures. A couple years ago, I picked Utah to beat Oregon in the Pac-12 title game because I really loved I think they had the nation's top run defense. I loved what they had in the front 7. They got absolutely torn apart. I don't want to make the mistake again by banking on the Utes when I think this is kind of a bad matchup for them in the trenches, even though they'll compete, they'll play good ball. Oregon, though, I think they're going to itch this one out in Salt Lake City.